Good morning, and welcome to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you to Talk of the Town for this Wednesday, July 22nd. I'm Gary Stevens. We'll have open line following the 10 and 11 o'clock news blocks. Patty Vanderberg will have what's new around Holland in about an hour from now. And after that, we'll be talking with the executive director of the Macatawa Area Coordinating Council, Tyler Kent. But in our first half hour, we will be having a conversation about what's going on at the Holland Rescue Mission. And joining us via Zoom connection is the executive director of the Rescue Mission, Darryl Bartlett. Darryl, good morning. Welcome back to WHTC.
Good morning. Good to be with you, Gary.
Glad you are with us. And you can join the conversation not via Zoom, but via the old traditional way of calling us at 395-1450, 395-1450. Before we get to some of the things that you are pointing out to us today, I would assume the rescue mission, for the most part, Darryl, has gotten through the last 4 months okay, about as well as it could be.
Yes, I don't think your audience could see that, but I swiped my brow. It has been quite a ride, as it's been for all of us and people around the world, literally, but for us especially, who work with a troubled, difficult, and quite often unhealthy population already. Fortunately, many of the protocols that we had in place for years, literally for years, Gary, have really come home to benefit our people in tremendous ways. Holland Rescue Mission's had a reputation both on the street and among the Association of Rescue Missions and other shelters that we ran a very clean operation. And so sanitation, we just take it as our call and our duty to treat people with the kind of love and compassion and service that would treat Jesus. So I've often told our staff, you're putting Jesus into that bed. So it better be the kind of bed that you would want to put Jesus in. We're serving the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And so to that end, we've not had, praise the Lord, one case of COVID. We've had 14 people, both between staff and guests, tested for COVID. No one has contracted COVID in our building. That's not true among other rescue missions in West Michigan. And then I know of staff people who have died at other rescue missions. So we thank the Lord for his goodness that way. But I think many of the protocols that we had in place already have prevented the spread of the disease or the virus. And then we put in some stricter protocols, and we can talk about those as well.
We'll talk about the protocols in a moment. First of all, let's talk about some of the numbers. Based on previous years, were the numbers up, down, or about the same in terms of people needing the mission's help over the last 4 months?
Yeah, with what we've tracked this very closely, and we're actually down, Gary. I think some of the governmental orders of shelter stay in place. People were willing to allow family to stay, or as they took in others, they were allowing them to stay. Our numbers, especially on the women and children side. So this is, I think, somewhat of a silver lining around this, is that other people have stepped up and said, you know what, I'm going to help this family. I'm going to help this single mom. Right now at our Family Hope Center, we have 18 women and children. That's as low as we've been in, I can't remember a time that we've been that low. And now that's in our shelter. We do have 10 women that are participating in our program. And so fortunately during this time, we've had a reduced population. Our numbers are typically a little higher right this time of year at our men's building, but tonight we have almost 40 men in our shelter and about 11 men in our Gateway program, not to mention those that are in our apartments that are in transition. We call that our transitional development program. We have 7 people. So under roof tonight, 87 people. We would typically run anywhere from 120 to 150, 60 people per night.
The reason why I brought that point up, Darryl, is the fact that unfortunately a casualty of the outbreak has been the fact more people unemployed, more people maybe at risk for losing their housing. I know that there's been a moratorium on evictions in the state, but still, those situations would normally mean the rescue mission would be used a little bit more often.
That's correct. And our staff, we've been on the calls regularly with the local service providers and all the emergency service providers, and regular calls, planning, coordinating, collaboration. We did send some folks over to the DoubleTree. I'm grateful for United Way and the local community foundation raised separate funds for us to be able to disperse. They asked us to what's called de-intensify. They felt that we had too many women and children in our Family Hope Center, that we couldn't keep proper social distancing. And so we did spread some folks over to the DoubleTree for a little while, and they paid for that. But we're part of the regular coordination and collaboration of what's going to happen going forward. And we do think conventional wisdom is right now that once the moratorium for evictions is lifted, there may still be a sentiment of landlords saying, hey, I want to work with you. But we do think there's going to be a wave in the future that it will be more episodic homelessness, not the chronic homelessness that we typically see.
If you have a question for Darryl Bartlett of the Holland Rescue Mission, he'll be happy to take it at 395-1450, 395-1450. Darryl, you mentioned a little bit about some of the effects of COVID-19. Unfortunately, there's been nothing in terms of the outbreak affecting directly either those who have been helped by the mission or those who are helping in the mission. But the outbreak has certainly curtailed some of the mission's outreach programs and outreach efforts. Tell us a little bit about what right now is, shall we say, restricted at best and maybe not available right now until we get a better handle on this outbreak.
Yeah, that's a great question. Many of our volunteer activities, typically during the summer, we have a lot of groups, whether they're youth groups or adult groups that want to do work projects. And churches will rally, social groups will rally, and various clubs. We're not able to handle those larger groups because of the social distancing, and then the dynamic of having to have everyone temperature tested and answer a health survey and things like that. So we're limiting some of our volunteerism. I don't want to communicate to your public, your listening public, that we're not taking volunteers. We are, but we're just not able to take the large groups. One of the big things that's heavy on our heart is we've been working with Hope College, some of the other agencies that help us execute the Great Thanksgiving Banquet, held the night before Thanksgiving Day, the Wednesday before at DeVos Fieldhouse. That's still up in a question for us. We're in discussion with Hope College. We think if we do have it, it's going to be severely limited based on capacity to keep the right social distancing. So that dynamic is something that we're confronting. We're still in discussions, and we're kind of waiting to see what phase we're in right now in the state of Michigan based on the governor's executive order. So that thing is, it's a huge event for us. It's the way that we draw the community together around those in need and all the various social economic classes of folks, and we're all one together on one night. We may not be able to handle it the way that we have in the past.
We'll see what happens, as many aspects of life have been since, we'll say, March 10th, when the outbreak really hit the state. We all got to play it by ear, and let's just wait and see what happens and be very flexible about the situation. Again, if you have a question for Darryl Bartlett of the Holland Rescue Mission, you'll take it at 395-1450, 395-1450. Let's talk about the bottom line. Obviously, the efforts of the Holland Rescue Mission, you want to do as much as you can, but you cannot do it without revenue. And right now, one of the revenue sources had been shut off. It's back on, but it's still, shall we say, somewhat limited. Talk a little bit about the gateway and also your restore.
Yeah, it was quite a shock to our system. Um, we kind of looked and said, well, we are an essential business or an essential service, but we felt that it was in the best interest of the community that we close Gateway. We moved all of our program students who are in that program. We moved them back to our residential buildings. We did all the teaching then in two separate buildings. Staff went back and forth. It was quite strenuous on our staff, but it shut down a major revenue source for us. 40% of our revenue comes through Gateway now. And it's been so embraced by the community. People love the store. They love the values that we give. And they love the fact that it's homeless folks that are in training that are doing the majority of the staffing and learning work skills. We're back in operation. We thank the Lord for that. We're open 9 to 6, Monday through Saturday. We're able to allow people to shop. We have all the protocols of proper social distancing. We're requiring masks. We sanitize. We're open until 8 o'clock. We're closing at 6 so that our staff can do all the sanitizing and restocking without customers in the store. We probably will extend those hours in the next month or so, but right now 9 to 6, lots of great values during the months of shutdown. One thing that didn't shut down is we were still getting donations, and so we had limited staff keeping proper distance, and our production floor is humming. We're open for business. We as well re-implemented in-person home pickups. We had to curtail that service. We started it once again, but we did change the protocols around that. It's by appointment. We're serving the areas of Holland, Zeeland, West Olive, Drenthe, Friesland, the local areas. We pick up from 12:30 till 4 weekdays, and we're asking that people put their items in the garage, and then we will have contactless pickup. We don't go into the residence. We don't want to imperil them, and we don't want our staff to be potentially at risk. And so we're trying to limit exposure that way.
Yeah, the curveball, of course, is for those who live in apartments.
Yes.
that does give a curveball.
Kind of difficult. Yes.
Indeed. But to schedule an appointment, I have the number here, and I'll repeat it a couple of times. So in case you have stuff you wish to donate to the Holland Rescue Mission for resale, 616-928-3422. 616-928-3422. That's the number to get a hold of the rescue mission and to schedule an appointment for items to be picked up for the resale store. And again, that revenue source certainly is necessary. What about other sources of revenue? Have you been able to get maybe different ones during this time to sort of help tide things over?
Yeah, great question. And I mentioned the one that United Way and the Community Foundation really were the central driving fundraising force for all things COVID. And they reached out to us proactively and said, we know that you need to de-intensify. We know that you've had that request from the health department. So that funding was a tremendous source. And kudos to the United Way and the Community Foundation and those who support them. That really helped our people. But I've had some neat things happen, Gary. I remember about a month and a half ago, our executive team, those that I work with closely to manage the mission on a day-to-day basis, we felt like we needed to do something for our staff. Some missions were doing hazard pay. You know, we're 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And in spite of a worldwide pandemic, we can't shut down. So typical or similar to the hospital and other emergency responders, we're an essential service. And so our staff were on the front lines, and we're an essential service to a population that's very vulnerable to this kind of thing. And so our staff did stellar work. We felt we needed to do something. It wasn't in our budget, but we kind of put together an internal request. I was going to take it to the board at our next board meeting. About a day after our management got together and said, let's ask our board for a nice generous bonus for our staff who's been on the front lines. For instance, we had people that worked at Gateway that then went in and they were doing pots and pans and dishes and learning how to cook. They were helping to sanitize. We put people on the front door because we had to stop guests. We couldn't have outside guests come in. We curtailed our open guest meal times where we would have people come in off the streets for meals. We took box lunches out to them at the front doors of our building. And so it took more manpower to do that. We were doing higher levels of sanitation and cleaning, and our staff just rallied around like the troopers they are. And we went to ask our board, and I got a phone call from a donor and said, Darryl, you've been on my heart. I'm just going to ask you flat out, what do you need? And I said, our leadership feels like we should give our staff a bonus. Tell me how much that is. And I told him, and Gary, it was a big number. He said, I'm not sure if I can do that, but I know the Lord prompted me to call you. And 2 days later, I had a check in my hand for that amount. We gave our staff a tremendous bonus that were on the front lines, working extra hours, doing stellar work, exposing themselves, and making themselves vulnerable. So we've just seen that kind of thing. The community has responded. They know that our people were already on the edge, and this would. So I'm happy to say today, I just got a report this morning. 74% of our men at the men's shelter, 100% of them were out of work. 74% of them are back to work in our emergency shelter.
Excellent.
Believe me, to solve homelessness, work, employment, getting a paycheck is a significant event to move someone out of homelessness. And I'm happy to say, in spite of COVID, our men are back to work. The others, we're gonna help them until they can get back to work. But we've just seen that kind of thing happen.
I have an online question for you, Darryl. Wants to know your opinion about the latest discussions about the revising of the non-discrimination policy in the city of Holland.
Yeah, that's an important issue for us. I actually have just recently asked for a meeting with the city manager to discuss the ramifications for organizations like ours. I can say that Holland Rescue Mission will house everyone. We will house people regardless of their cultural background, color, skin, gender, whatever. We're going to love people in the name of Christ and as Jesus would. So Holland Rescue Mission will take in anyone. We will serve anyone. And that's just bottom line, what we believe Jesus' command is to us, to love the world. So I do want to see, however, that our sincerely held religious convictions are preserved and protected. So far, what I've seen is that the language does protect faith-based organizations, that they will not be able or be forced to do things that violate their sincerely held religious convictions. So I want to have a conversation with the city manager just to get assurance of that kind of thing going forward.
There is concerns, however, that part of what this would possibly curtail is the prevention of faith-based organizations from talking to these people and trying to have a conversation with them that might be construed as proselytizing and construed as trying to bend them to their ways. And the LGBTQ community would say, we don't want that.
Yeah, I would say that that is a religious right in America. The freedom of speech, and then as well, I wouldn't want to see religious activities muzzled. So those are the kinds of things that I want to have a conversation directly with the city manager to determine, does this protect those kinds of legitimate freedom of expression and religion in America? We want to see that that's upheld.
And also the fact that these people that will be coming in needing your services, they don't want to feel threatened by that.
I can assure folks that we want to love on and love everyone who comes. We're an open arm that way. We have people in our buildings tonight that probably most of Holland would be uncomfortable reaching out to, but that's who we minister to. We want to welcome them.
Two more things, but first I want to touch upon pressing needs for the mission right now. What things do the mission need that, let's just say you could have had it yesterday?
Yeah, face masks. They're difficult to get our hands on. My wife made face masks for our staff. She took over our dining room table, and for about a week, 2 weeks, all she did was make face masks all day long. She was a regular production facility. If women are able, men, anyone can make face masks for us, we will take them. If they can purchase them, we go through a lot of them because we require them for all of our guests and all of our overnight guests. As well, many people might not know this, but as the Postal Service food drive was canceled this year, typically held the week after Tulip Time, it was canceled. We typically get 17 to 20,000 pounds of food. We didn't get that 17,000 pounds of food this year. That's valued at about $30,000 for us. It usually lasts us through the fall. And then the fall is when a lot of churches and other organizations do food drives for us. We didn't get that. And so shelf-stable food, canned goods, those things that can last a long time on the pantry shelf, we could use them. And if your listeners can throw another can of beans in the basket when they're going through Family Fare grocery store and drop one by Holland Rescue Mission, we would welcome it.
Darryl Bartlett from the Holland Rescue Mission. I want to thank you very much for joining us today on WHTC's Talk of the Town. We'll put a link to hollandrescue.org on our webpage when we put the audio podcast of this conversation up in a few minutes, and we'll have the video of our Zoom conversation. I'll link to that later on today. Darryl, as always, we appreciate your time. We wish you and all at the mission Godspeed.
God bless. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you very much, Darryl Bartlett from the Holland Rescue Mission. And coming up on WHTC's Talk of the Town, we have CBS News with Deborah Rodriguez, WHTC News with Peg McNichol, and then we'll have more of WHTC Talk of the Town, including a conversation with Tyler Kent of the Macatawa Area Coordinating Council.